You want at 8.
Yeah, we're recording.
A lot of swearing.
Just so you know, we are recording.
We are recording. Would you like to get in the hot seat?
We are recording.
Without swearing.
Yeah, no swearing. That's so funny. Yeah, the girls always ask, but if it's in a song, can we sing it? And I'm like, now?
She did tell me about Ben, she was like, there was some profanity. I was like, at the concert, I was like, oh, I bet there was.
Yeah, yeah. There's a song and it says, they say, like, just for the hell of it, and Kate Kinsley sings it just for a little bit.
Oh,
That's her kid-friendly
I love
version
that.
of the rock and roll song. So we are gathered here today.
When we're not recording, I have 2 funny stories about something.
Okay,
I think
yeah,
it's just
sorry.
Karen watching now.
For those in the digital training room, you don't maybe hear the juicy
Hi,
stuff.
Karen.
The after party. So we're here with Ben Espenshade. He agreed to be our How I Grew host today. So we're going to start with just the basic question of why did you get into real estate? What attracted you to this business?
So I started college in computer science and I did that. Luckily, I interned for a company and they basically said, hey, listen, if you intern for us, we'll pay for the rest of your college. So halfway through college, I realized that computer science was not for me. And I hung my hat on the fact that my stepfather was going to flip a bunch of houses with his friend, and they maybe did 2 houses where they flipped. So I kind of got pulled into real estate because I thought it'd be a good side hustle, and I thought it would be a good way to get my name out there and possibly just be a stepping stone to something. So
Okay,
that's kind of why I got in, because it was something that I could do with a lower entry level. I didn't need a college degree, and it was something that I saw the challenges in. So that's kind of why I got into it.
okay, so definitely a different direction than computer science. So you started flipping with your, said father-in-law?
Yeah.
Okay, what was next?
So I joined a really small brokerage, which I think later on helped me a lot because we were able to do all of the hands-on stuff, like title work. We didn't have any, administration staff. We didn't have any TC, anything like that. So I think that joining a smaller brokerage and having to learn all those things kind of helped me get started because I knew the ins and outs. It kind of helped me build my resume as far as what I knew in the industry, being young and just doing that. But I started with a really small brokerage, had to kind of get started with all the grassroots marketing, like open houses and door knocking. And I used to pose as a furniture buyer on Craigslist. Because I knew I had to start making connections, and I figured if somebody was going to sell a couch, then they might be interested in selling their home. So I would just go look at that. I would just go look at the couch, and then I would at least see it and say, hey, listen, if you're selling, I can maybe bring a buyer. So I knew I had to leverage everything young because I started when I was 21. So
Okay, so you,
leveraging that kind of stuff. I didn't have any family that was involved in real estate. I didn't know much about the business. I knew I had to start learning as I go. So I kind of had to leverage a lot of the free stuff like open houses and door knocking and Craigslist and stuff like that.
hilarious. So what year was this when you got into business?
So I got licensed in 2007, but I didn't actually do it really full time till like probably 2010, 2011.
Okay,
So
so
it was part-time
after the
college.
crunch,
Yeah.
you went full time.
Mm.
Let's talk about that. What made you decide to go full
Well, I wanted to go full time earlier, but being with where the market was in 2008 to 2010 wasn't really the market for full-time agents. So I stayed working part-time, but still, which I think got me through that, peaks and valleys of real estate. Because I think that if you stay small enough where you don't have a lot of debt or things like that, you can withstand a lot more.
Okay.
You can take a lot more risk too.
That makes sense, right? So keep your expenses low.
Yeah, keep expenses low. I started full-time when I knew that I could pretty much, I knew I needed more time in the field, more hours in the field. So that's when I pretty much said, okay, I'm gonna take the risk.
And when you did that, did you have a mentor or like what were trainings or just what things did you do to keep yourself in that stage of growth?
Yeah, the big thing was learning almost everything. So because I didn't really have anyone that did stuff for me, like a TC or anything like that, it just didn't really exist back in the day, so I had to learn the ins and outs of everything, which I think kept me motivated because I had more stuff to talk to with my clients. I had more experiences to like, you know, backstop off of. I think I had a lot more, well, this is what could happen if you don't do this. So I think it ended up building my business a little bit further because I think that built the resume for people to work with me in the future.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because I think so the training was more like on the spot and I had a mentor, we kicked things off each other and they would help me through the process. And I would help them through some things, because I think that's the biggest education is experience. Experience and
100%. failure.
Because I think those were two things.
There was, I don't want to call it like an incident, but there was we'll say it was a closing that was happening here, about a month ago. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish all the new agents were in the office right now because one of our top agents was handling a very difficult situation with class and professionalism in a way that you can only learn when you're in the room, like when you're hearing it or seeing it with your own eyes. You can take all the classes you want, but
Well, and I think part of it too is
being in it, you learn.
yeah, that experience and being able to pinpoint what might go wrong, what could go wrong, and seeing it ahead of time is really, really valuable when talking to your clients, because I think that's the master the mundane type stuff where they don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but if you're preparing them what could happen, then that's the reason for them to promote you in the future.
That makes sense. I love that. And what would you say your growth strategy was at that point? Like what, you did open houses and shopped Craigslist
Yeah.
in the beginning, but now that you were full-time, how did your lead gen strategies evolve?
Well, I do still shop, no, I don't shop. I don't
He
shop
shops
Craigslist, but I
Marketplace.
do still make connections through random avenues, because that's the way I've tried to build my business, is like your sphere of influence, especially I grew up in Carlisle, so a small town, you only have so much, so you have to kind of branch out, so I'll still utilize Facebook groups and marketplace and certain areas where I'll just, say, hey, I'm a real estate agent, I love your house, was wondering if you're gonna have an open house, I can send 2 buyers to. Something like that, just
okay.
making connections in random spots, because then, those seeds get planted and they grow down the road, but my growth strategy at that point was, I knew I wanted to sell more houses, so I did start dabbling in more online presence at that point, things like that, but really learning, I took like 4 years and just learned the business in and out before I felt comfortable really like expanding into like internet
Okay,
clients and things like that.
okay. And then when did you start growing the team?
So I started growing the team 2019. And full transparency, it was great until it wasn't. So I mean, that was a really good growth learning, because I thought I knew what I really, really wanted. And then when it all happened, I realized I didn't really want that per se, and I didn't want that
Okay.
avenue. So I was able to, grow to a team of 6 people and then downsized a little bit. And it was, in my opinion, I wish I still had some of the team members, but it was a good learning experience for me. I think it was a good fail forward moment.
Right.
Cause
right.
it was something where I learned pretty quickly, like, I don't think it would have been, it wasn't on the great growth path, and I don't think I would have been long-term happy.
Okay, so can we dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, tell us more about like, what does that look like for you?
Well, so that particular system was, I built a team based on needs and, had a 2019, had a ton of buyers. I was running like super low on energy as far as showing houses and just doing offers and still having, I think 2019, the kids were still like 4 and 7, so
Yeah,
they
they're
were,
young.
yeah, they were young, so I built it based on necessity. Cause I had all these buyers and I needed somebody to show us. So I hired probably wrong first. I hired buyer agent first. Then I hired a buyer agent slash administrator. And then I hired a kind of a dual purpose agent, but I think what I thought I wanted was that, and it was great until it wasn't, because inventory went away and those buyers didn't have anything, those buyers agents didn't have the sphere of influence, they didn't have the experience. We lacked a lot of culture at the last brokerage. So kind of propelled me into a new chapter where, okay, I'm gonna step back and still build it, but build it more purposely.
And you mentioned you may have hired backwards, meaning you hired the buyer's agent first, which is a common misconception. Like, a lot of agents, they get busy and then the very first thing they think of is, well, how do I offload the buyers to save time? What hire do you think you should have hired first?
I still,
Hindsight always being 20/20, to be fair, right?
so I would have hired a dual. I would have hired a dual administrative and also an agent, probably in the beginning. It's hard to hire just a straight up administrator. I know that's what the book calls for and everything. It's hard to do that.
Yeah,
But I
that's
would at least-
full-time work.
Yeah, and there's been so much changes. I think if I were to do it all over again, I might go with a VA first and then go with an in-person and get the systems running that way. But I think probably the first step would be somebody to take some stuff off of your plate. Like, I know Shanice and I are reading the same book, but you basically buy back your time and the stuff you don't like to do. So I still like showing houses and I still like working with buyers. I still like solving problems. So I think I would have flipped it. I think I would have hired just somebody to take over the day-to-day stuff first.
And then maybe some of like that marketing.
Yeah.
What we find is people who hire buyer's agents first, like you said, like the inventory dries up or they kind of run out of leads. So you almost have to have that admin or VA running your touch plan at a high level. So that way you have an influx of leads coming in, so that way you're always feeding them at least something. Because at the end of the day, if you're not giving them anything,
Yeah,
they
I think it
tend
was,
to not stay.
yeah, I think it was more, I don't know if they're the right person or anything like that. I think it was the wrong value proposition. I think that was the biggest thing. I think I focused more on stuff I couldn't control. Like it was more about leads and it was more about marketing. And then when COVID hit and we didn't have any houses to sell, the value proposition wasn't there anymore. So I had to rethink what the value proposition was moving forward.
Okay.
And it was a fail forward moment because I don't think now looking forward to it, I don't think I want to run my team like that with that value proposition. So it was a good lesson to learn at the time. And I'd rather learn it then than 5 years forward.
For
That
sure.
time, yeah.
For sure. And I think the fair thing to say too is most people, when they first start building a team, they learn those things. Like even, Dave Hook, we kind of put on a pedestal as like the ultimate team builder, right? He's kind of earned that reputation. But they hire people that don't work out. And I think we carry this burden of,
Yeah, you have to get it perfect.
and you're not going to. Like you're dealing with people and you can't control anybody but yourself.
Yeah. When I remember having one of my team members come to a Gene Rivers event and leaving like, I don't want any of this. I don't want a big life like that. And it was a good thing because we were pushing her into that position where we were giving her everything. We thought we were giving her everything we wanted.
Right.
And she just wasn't, that wasn't her definition of success. I was like, well, it's a good thing we learned that now versus, 2 years from now. So
Right.
It was a fail forward movement.
No, I love that. Was the Gene Rivers event, Quantum Leap?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was a little overwhelming for them at that stage in their life. And I mean, that's the business now. You have to be mediocre at a lot of things. So I think that was the struggle.
and was it after Quantum Leap you came to KW or before?
Right about the same time.
Okay,
I think it was like a month after.
why did you make a leap?
Well, one of the biggest things I learned was, especially during COVID, especially like, you don't know what you don't know. And I pretty much quickly realized, like I was being recruited by a lot of agencies, but I quickly realized that A, there's more to work than just work. And B, you have to leverage stuff you can't control. It's very hard to leverage culture. It's very hard to leverage training. It's very hard to leverage, even the culture we built with kind of small groups and all sorts of things like that. I think most agents are just struggling to find something to do. And since we have such, weekly training, some monthly trainings, you're just, maybe you're a week away from learning the next thing that's gonna take your business over. So that was a hard thing. That was pretty much the reason I went to. Adam confirmed my
Adam
suspicions.
Osborne.
But yeah, that was the big thing, is I just wanted somewhere I enjoyed coming to work, and then also utilizing and leveraging everything that's already established.
I can appreciate that. What do you think have been some of your favorite trainings? I know you've been to family reunion, like we've been to a good variety of stuff we offer.
I would say that my favorite was Gene's, not Quantum Leap,
Career visioning
no, it wasn't career vision. I loved career visioning.
or.
That was with, that wasn't business planning. It was like building a life by design. We had it up in the Elks Lodge in Harrisburg.
I'm staring at Adrienne because I feel like she would be from that movie. I'm having.
It was basically about building the business that you really want. It was up in Harrisburg. There was what's that?
When was it?
It was well, I've only been here for a little over a year, so it was before I joined.
Okay, it'll come to me.
But that was my favorite training because
been here a year?
a little over a year. Well, it's a year and a half now, I guess.
Yeah.
So February.
Time flies.
I know.
But I like the idea of, I've gone to all sorts of trainings and most are about like just defining yourself by work, but I like the idea of building your own idea of success and setting your own parameters in which you kind of live that life. And, it's not always just about money. So that was my favorite, but I also I liked Quantum Leap. I actually probably was Quantum Leap. Because I went to two Gene Rivers, Quantum Leap and Business Planning. Business Planning was the one where my
There you
teammate was
go.
like, this is a lot. I was like, yeah. But those are my favorite. And then I love like family reunion. I think as long as you go into any of the trainings with like just getting one thing, you don't have to worry about getting it all. But as long as you get one thing and take action on it, then you'll be good.
Yeah, like going with, okay, I wanna go to family reunion and get social media strategies.
Yeah.
And then you only go to the classes that involve social media, so you're not overwhelmed or like, I'm going to Quantum Leap because I need to get clear on my vision for the next year. And as long as you get that out of the 15
Yeah.
pages of notes that you take, like, that's the principle of it. I think since joining KW, you definitely worked on your lead generation strategies, especially like your social media game earlier, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Facebook groups, what's working really well for you?
So I think with me, what was always a hard part of my business was I always wanted to perfect things. And then I finally got to a point where I was like, especially when my admin went to another team, I was pretty much at the point where I was like, okay, done is better than perfect. And I just have to start taking action on some things. So I really minimized everything down to just a few things. And like, I'm by no means systems person, but I started time blocking a little bit. And that has helped me. And I started utilizing some systems. And like, I think if I had to pick one thing that's really working for lead generation is more last year's bold and actually like practicing scripting
Okay,
and practicing conversations. That has helped me have much better conversations. And also I would say the motivation to have more conversations. Because when you start the day with like a practice session, like I'll still call Adam and we'll practice a, reply to inspection or something like that, because then you take it to the next level and you feel more comfortable to talk to that agent or talk to those investors or talk to random people about different situations.
I love that. So you've been in the business 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
And he still finds that scripts and role play.
Well, and because it's changing so much, like, for a long time, getting people to talk to you on social media was the hard part. Now it's easy to reach a ton of people, but it's hard to actually have the really detailed conversations, like. You get an internet lead and you say, oh, well, when do you wanna see him? Well, instead of saying that, I'll just say, hey, I'm in the area tomorrow at 4. Do you wanna stop by and look at it? I've had much more success getting people to the front door, or having the conversations about what they're looking for in the next house, or. I mean, I even had the conversation with a client last week where I said, maybe it looks better for you to shop this off market. And they agreed. So, because they didn't want to go to the market, so that actually got me the listing without them being ready to list it on the open market. So I think you just having the scripting and I don't know if I'd call it scripting. I would say having the practice helps you have motivation to have more conversations.
And almost like develop a strategy too.
Yeah.
I'm sure like.
Oh, yeah, because you only learn by failing.
Mhm.
And if you don't ask for something, like I remember I had this is more of an investing story, but like I had a client that called me and said, hey, do you wanna, can you come look at my house and give me an estimate on what it's worth? I went out, gave them an estimate, I think I said like 160, and they're like, well, would you buy it? And I said, oh, well, I would, but I said, I can't pay that. I said, I don't, and he said, well, would you pay this? And I said, I can, but I have to sell something in order to buy it. And they said, well, what if I did seller financing? And all the time I was like, why didn't I ask those questions? He was asking me all these questions and it led to the perfect outcome, but I was like, I should ask all those questions.
Wow.
So it kind of was learning as I go, but like having experience and like just having more conversations, especially with people in different industries, I think you learn a lot more.
So I do want to highlight that because you are an avid investor.
Yeah.
And we definitely have some investors in the room, some aspiring investors in the room. How do you approach a potential listing appointment, knowing that maybe you do want to make an offer on it? What does that conversation look like?
Well, typically, I don't ever want to I don't want to sacrifice long-term success for short-term results. So I won't go into it with the idea, like, I still think you can make more money by selling more houses and finding better deals, and you don't want to burn any bridges. So I still will always have, 2 options or 3 options in some cases on listings. I'll say, hey, listen, we offer a couple different services. We have a buy it now service, we have a listing it for this service, and then we have our premium package that gets you the most money. And
Okay,
if the conversation starts with, well, maybe we want to go with, the buy it now, then I would approach it. But typically, I've always found that you have to do best by your client and you could say, and I've had success with, I've actually had people who said, well, why don't you just buy it? Because I'll say to them like, hey, listen, this is your best way to get top dollar, but this is what it's gonna require. And
okay,
then maybe it leads to, well, okay, well, we don't want to do that. What would the buy it now price be? But typically, I don't go in looking for a purchase,
okay, that's fair.
more of the listing, because then I think it builds rapport with them too, like you have their best interest in mind. And sometimes their best interest in mind are actually just selling it quickly and with low inspections and low contingencies and time.
For sure, for sure.
So I don't go in looking for that, but I always ask the question.
Okay, that's fair. I like how you present it, kind of like a menu.
Yeah.
Of services versus.
Well, that helps me get the higher listing commission because, when they see the premium package, they say, okay, well, we want all of that, but we don't wanna.
We don't
Or
want
we're
to
a lower price. I'm
necessarily.
like, well, I can't do everything,
Right,
I have to have the budget in order to market it like that, so. But then the buy now price has come up a few times. I don't actively market it that way. But it's come up when they understand all the steps and asking questions, because, I think I had one friend who was a wholesaler and they said their biggest source of wholesaling was embarrassment. It wasn't the condition of their house, like repairs or anything like that. It was embarrassment and then timing, like we needed to move quicker. So I asked them more questions about what their ideal goal is. When do they want to sell it? When do they want to get out of here? Do they want to lease back? Things like that. And then if it
as
presents
you
itself,
learn, you're like, okay, through this needs analysis process, then it makes sense. One thing that you didn't mention, but I think has come up in conversations, and I've at least used it as an example, so I hope I wasn't lying. But you also use like the gym as a lead strategy.
yeah, so when I first started real estate, I joined like 3 gyms at once. Because I had like, I mean, I didn't have any clients, so I was just like, I didn't have any clients, so I was like, well,
Oh.
I had to, I mean, I just sold a house last week with somebody I had met at Gold's Gym in like 2010, probably. But, I mean, it's nice when you don't know people, like open houses, things like that, they have no idea who you are most of the time.
Right, and
So
they just
you can,
assume you know what you're doing.
yeah, and I mean, well, that was my opportunity, I was 21, so I didn't have the benefit of a name in the business or any real like
You didn't have that
success stories
reputation.
to, yeah. So for me, it was easy to go to the gym or go to Craigslist or go to any of those places and prove my worth to those people because they didn't know who I was. Like, I had younger agents on my team and they would say, well, I don't know this. I'm like, they don't know that. And I mean, even I think there's some power into just saying like, hey, listen, this is my benefit. Like, I'm always available. I don't have as many clients as some of those other agents, things like that. So I was able to utilize the gym and just build a lot more connections. And also, I think when you approach a relationship and real estate or business is not the main objective, it builds validity for the main objective. Because, I mean, I just had one close a couple months ago where I met the person through a Facebook group and it was a short-term rental group in Poconos and it was basically like, how can you help me create more success in my Airbnb? So I was helping them with staging and helping them with photographers and things like that. And then when they found out I was a real estate agent, they were kind of like shocked. Like, you didn't lead with that. And I was like, well, why would I? Like, I was trying to create value.
Right,
So then I ended up getting the listing. I had no business up there in the Poconos, but they gave me the listing just because I had created the value and built a reputation or built a rapport with them.
how would you approach the conversations in like such a casual environment, like a gym? Like, how would you, cause like for me, I'm at the gym and I'm like, talk to me, nobody.
Well, I joined specific gyms, like I joined a CrossFit gym, nobody had headphones in. I joined a jujitsu gym, nobody had headphones in.
Okay.
Like I knew that I wanted, well, it was also stuff that I liked too, cause I was like, I don't wanna. It probably is.
Ask for seats, yeah.
Well, and you're able to, like, I wasn't gonna be the person that was like, hey, nice shoes, or something like that. I mean, you could,
You could, I
you
guess.
could really
Maybe for
randomly.
girls, like we could probably
I
do
would do
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah, we could.
But I joined gyms or I joined
Yeah.
things that would, like, I didn't wanna do like a social club, I wasn't a big drinker, so I didn't go to the bars and things like that, so I was like, well, I need to make some connections with something, so CrossFit, jujitsu, and then a normal gym, but I was able to just build like friendships before then when they found out you're in business, and it was like, oh, well, what areas do you work in, things like that.
Okay, okay.
And I think if you don't approach things like that right away, it gives you more rapport with them when you actually need it, like, it doesn't really need my business, you didn't ask for any referrals or anything like that, but then when you bring it up, like, hey, listen, if you know anybody, I'm more happy to help them. Then it's kind of like, okay, that builds more of a rapport with them, and like a resume, I guess.
Yeah, and they get to know you as you
Yeah.
first, which builds that trust. I think the point that I wanted to try to make with that, is what are things that you enjoy doing that involve people? Like, how do you just get around more people that have similar likes and interests as you and do those things? You know, could it be being a part of multiple book clubs or church groups or gyms, or I'm trying to think of like some other hobbies, but you know, maybe as winter's approaching, like if you like to go skiing, like what I've learned is, you know, and we've interviewed Bill before, but this industry is such a people business. So you just have to get in a relationship with more people to find a way that you like to do that. So that way it's fun.
Well, and I think too, the last 3 years, like I was a part of real estate when we were showing like 10 houses at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're showing 10 houses at a time, you build a great connection with somebody. You show you're working hard, you show you're showing up, show all that. Past 4 years, we haven't done any of that.
Right,
We've
it's
been basically, so there's different ways, like you have to leverage social media and build a rapport with people from them seeing your face, or you have to, I mean, you can utilize a lot of like Facebook groups. ones that you can add value in, had pretty good success with. And I've had to leverage some things like, if I'm only gonna see my clients once a month, because I'm only showing them one house a month, then I should probably text them every Monday and say, here's no news, good news, or bad news, just to remind them I'm still looking, or. I mean, I just started doing a social media campaign where I'm like. Putting actual negotiations out there, like showing people what it's like to actually work with me. So that's kind of been something I'm trying to do, because we haven't had to fill people in for a long time, or haven't built those relationships for 4 years.
I think it's very clever. I like it.
Yeah.
So I'll keep watching. Does anybody have questions? I've been asking all the questions, but as you've been listening or have had conversations with Ben, is there anything you would like to?
I have a question. When you first started the business, decided to go full-time, were you married, single, living at home? What was your situation?
Just married.
Just married, okay.
And the day of my wedding, I got a call that the brokerage was shutting down. A small brokerage was shutting down.
No, we never
Why
asked
was he
about
calling
that.
you on your wedding day?
I don't think they even knew. I mean, it was pretty
Wow.
disconnected.
Wow.
We knew the brokerage was going downhill, but
It's their gift to you.
I was like, well, I guess I'm going full time, but I mean, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I do think though that seeing the struggles with people, especially like 2010 to 2000, it was a different kind of struggle. Like it's similar struggle now because there's less inventory. So having seen those struggles, I think helped me in today's climate,
Mhm.
because I know there's just some stuff that we couldn't control in 2010, like the house prices were going down. But what we could control was like how you talk to people, how you show up, what action you take, or just reminding people you're still working for them. So I think seeing that helped me a lot with this current market.
That makes sense. It's just applied differently, but
Yeah,
same strategy.
yeah, because you can't help how many houses are on the market right now, or you can't help that values are all-time high and people are paying what they're paying, but what you can focus on is like learning new things, bringing new ideas, and just keeping the contact with people.
Anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I mean, I thought, when you sent me that question, I thought maybe if I were to start over, what I would do differently.
Okay,
But I don't know that I would do anything differently, but I would implement some things a little earlier, like I would implement practicing. I would implement going into the office a lot more.
let's talk about that.
'Cause I
Let's talk
think-
about that.
So my philosophy, I was kind of telling another agent this, is you can take 3 years and learn the business. Or you can kind of learn from somebody who's already been in the business a lot of times, which I think is a huge thing that this brokerage does well, but. If you're in the office, you just kind of absorb conversations, like you don't have to be a part of them, you just hear them. You hear people on the phone, you hear how they say something, and you may even think like, it's not how I would have said it, but. At least you heard it, and you took constructive criticism, and now it's gonna help your future conversation, so I think. I would have definitely been in the office a little bit more, I would have started practicing a lot more, and I probably. Would have started branding a little bit earlier. I did a lot of stuff on social media that wasn't branding, it was more lead generation stuff,
Okay,
and now I think I would have started with branding a little bit more.
for those who may not know the difference in the room.
Well, so I think my social media strategy was a little off in the beginning. It was more about, hey, check out this house. Do you want to see this home? Stuff like that. Now it's more like, this is the stuff this is the moat around the castle. These are the problems we deal with. This is what we're actually doing. More branding, because if you put a video out where you're talking about a specific situation or something like that, that stays out there for a long time. And I think you can do a bunch of open houses. I think it's just leveraging. When you go to an open house and you do your spiel about the house and everything like that, you might only get 10 people to come, versus if you do some video, that's up there forever and it's always working for you. So I think I would switch it up a little bit as far as that goes, but I don't know if I would have done anything crazy different.
I can appreciate that though, because you learn so much through, like you said, fail forward.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much value in those lessons. And I think what I loved about it is you're giving everybody permission to accept, like, you're not gonna do everything perfectly. And sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards.
Yeah, and I think it makes you more relatable.
Yeah, yeah. So I love it. Any other questions for me? Keep it coming, Bill.
Where do you see your team going?
So I'm revamping everything with a different value proposition, more on leverage. Cause I think that that's gonna be the next wave of real estate. So building it more on leverage as far as, I think, why would you join a team in today's climate? And you have a couple different reasons, but I want my value proposition to be more about leverage. Like, you can go to bed knowing that a lot of stuff is being taken care of for you. And also, I think that you can get so much out of certain people. So I want to build it based on, experience and things like that. Cause I know I grew a ton with some mentors and, just tweaking little things where they made all the difference going forward. So I think it's gonna be more experience, leverage, and more, I guess, more coaching,
For you or for the people in your team, or all the above?
maybe all of the above.
Yeah.
Cause I think if I look back on like what I needed when I was a newer agent, I had it to some degree, but I think most people are just this close to doing it. Like, there's a few little tweaks and you'll get so much more traction with other things.
And I like that you mentioned the leverage piece, because a lot of agents aren't consistent because they don't have the funds to be consistent. Like, even though social media can be free, there's so much that you can do with less money. So when you have a team behind you to help you.
Yeah, and it could be even leverage, it could be even leverage as far as like the right things, what to do, what to say, and more, like video is gonna be a big one. Because with video and leveraging it, not everyone has the funds to spend that much money to promote ourselves. We all have cameras, we can do it ourselves, but like certain things, like Shanice and I kind of leverage now, we meet with, a builder together, so we both get content at the same time.
Oh,
So
nice.
leverage can be a bunch of different things, but
I love that though.
Using each other.
yeah.
I love that. Anything else?
Nobody wants to hear more about my Craigslist stories.
Yeah, what is the craziest Craigslist story? I keep like the Craigslist killer keeps coming into my head.
Maybe it's better.
Well, so my Craigslist shenanigans weren't actually
Oh
like, hey, let me come see your house. It was more like, hey, can I get dimensions on that couch, things like that. So it was just an easy way to like talk to people.
The house marketplace, we do the same thing.
Same thing.
Because when I sell things, then they realize, I have them on Facebook. After they buy it from me, I'm adding them on Facebook.
Yeah.
But
So I
I do
bought
have a comment for you.
Yeah.
Something that I love about you is that you evolve with the times. Like, you're always willing to grow and like learn different things, whereas like, you're not just stuck in the past. So I feel like that's why.
I think that makes it more fun too, though.
Yeah.
In other words, you're overhead.
I still get invited to the.
Yeah.
Right.
So content days.
Literally. Ben's the only male at our content day.
I was a director.
Yeah.
Like, I got this.
Yeah.
No, he was the only one that came prepped with the ideas.
Right.
You can help lead KWYP with Madison.
Literally.
Well, that's like going back to the done is better than perfect.
Yeah,
Like that was a huge thing for me because I think all of my success came from just weighing in and just trying
Make
it.
it till you make it.
I mean, my first investment property, I bought a sight unseen at an auction. So I mean,
No way.
so it's just winging
I
it
would break out.
and learning on the spot.
No, in the done is better than perfect, like when we did the client event. He had already sent out his photos to his clients and I'm sitting there, he's like, I bet you're sitting there trying to make this perfect email to send to them, and I'm like, okay. So then I just sent them. So, yeah, that's not.
I have to implement the done is better than
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
because I will sit on something
for hours trying to fix a graphic. I blink too much in this video, I don't wanna put it out there, like, just like I get caught up on the little details instead of just.
Yeah, like to the
Tell her about the
consumer,
timer.
they don't
Yeah.
notice that.
Yeah.
A timer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have systems. I'm very like winging it. So like one hack that I do is I have like a kitchen timer and I know like an offer should take me 20 minutes. So I'll set the kitchen timer for 20 minutes and that just keeps me in focus and it keeps me moving. And then I think like done is better than perfect. Like I had a bold, actually. They were like, oh, just call people. And I was like, gosh, I don't know what to talk, I don't know what to tell people, but I was like, well, I'm just gonna do something. So I texted like a bunch of people that I had a 1031 exchange buyer. And I got a call back from an investor that I'd never met. It was literally saved in my phone as guy who owns 55 rentals. And
Wow.
yeah, I
We
mean,
have to talk about that system.
Wow.
That is a system.
well, and he basically was like, we're actually in the process of liquidating everything. What are you looking for? And I was like, okay. I was like, well, can I call you in 10? And then, so it wasn't like, I wasn't prepared, nothing was proved. I didn't send him a seller's presentation, nothing like that, but I mean, you never know what's gonna come from.
Yeah. So talk about your cell phone contacts.
Oh, well, I have gone in and updated some of them, but anytime I won't remember their names. I won't remember where I met them or anything like that. Now I realize the new iPhone, you can search notes and stuff, but like I have people in there that just says Tom, blue shirt, played golf at Cumberland Golf Course. Like I'll just have random people, cause I don't remember
That's
things
their
about
name.
them, but I would
I have
never,
stuff
I would
like that.
never remember the name.
I have that too, I'm like Jose that I met at the grocery.
Yeah, but I will
And
say,
I still don't remember who was Jose that I met.
You're like,
so,
what conversation?
but the funny story about that is that that's a system that actually works for me because 4 years ago, I had somebody call me to see some land that I had listed in White Rock Acres. And it wasn't a very fit for them, but I kept them in my phone as land in White Rock Acres. And then when one came on like 2 years ago, 3 years after I'd already met them, I just typed in White Rock Acres into my phone, found them, sent them the land, and then they built a house for like 1.2 million with mustard. So
Okay, good that.
I think it's just whatever works for you. It's probably not the best system. I probably should have them in a CRM and all that stuff, but
Okay.
it works.
The best CRM
Yeah.
is the one you use.
Amen.
Yeah.
So you use your phone.
Amen.
Yeah, as long as
Well,
they're working.
Yeah, and I have since branched out to Reach and some other systems that work a lot better, but that was,
Reach is a good one.
Yeah,
to
it is.
use.
I do like that one too. Who wants to know what it is?
What is that?
it's like a group text message system, but you can put people in different groups. And you can more customize it.
But it lets you, so you send the message out to the group, but it sends as an independent
Individual.
message.
Does it come from your number or their?
Your number.
Your number, and if they're iPhone, it'll send as iMessage.
For Tuesday.
Yeah. And then.
But you can customize it.
So good.
I always
You asked
customize
about what I
Bill,
love.
cause I know he ain't coming to most of those, so I'll just be like, I hope you're doing well.
I always text, and then if we text back, she'll text back, right back.
Right, cause I get.
So right to your phone.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
just,
my
it's
gosh.
just it's like a gateway to your phone,
Oh, I love.
so
that.
it'll still show up in your phone.
It's
So
like
what-
Cause
send.
I hate sending messages through commands because it
It's a
goes
different
for that
number.
random number.
It's
Okay.
Yeah.
really, oh yeah.
Reach,
So maybe we need to have a training class on it.
that's
We
cool.
could totally.
Shot is really
Reach is probably the easiest one to
Is
use,
it
so.
free?
And it's cheap. There's a
Six.
free version, but I paid like the it's like $6.86 a month or something,
Oh,
but
wow.
it's the best $6 I can spend a month.
Yeah.
And when I do, I mean, you truly can, it gives you the option to edit the message with everybody that you're sending it to, so that way you can have your basic template. But then like if I know that one of our agents finally, she had been pregnant, finally had her baby, so like right before her message went out, I could at least say, hey, I hope you're feeling well, if you wanna join the live stream, here's the link. I can personalize it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a copy, it's an easier way of copy and pasting the same message, and it puts everyone into groups.
And
Oh,
then
I
just
checked that personal message and you asked about this property this week.
She asked me how to pay myself.
That's like, Shanice adds everyone as a close friend on Instagram, and I'm like,
No,
oh man,
everyone-
I was like, what, I'm sorry.
But I did
Bring back the MySpace.
I'm having a lot of people on my page.
Your
Yeah.
top 9 friends on MySpace.
Oh, man.
Remember?
Yeah, but that's why I feel like millennials, like, we can handle it, because we have the top.
It was right. Oh, you're right. 8. You were right.
Is that like Snapchat best friends list?
I guess, I was.
Yeah, kind of, but like,
No, it was on display.
It was
You would
on
go to
dis-
their page and
Oh,
you would
wow.
see,
and
Yeah,
you
you're
would
right.
expose the order of
and if you
like,
got mad at
best
your
friend,
friend.
you would move them. Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you know about MySpace.
That was theme songs when you would like come to your page.
It was my favorite.
Honestly, it would crush in today's.
Nobody
With
was
today's,
the mental health.
yeah.
Yeah, if we're worried about like Facebook and Instagram hurting our children's mental health, they should definitely do studies on what MySpace did to us.
It made us strong.
I'd like to say, the thing I enjoy watching with Ben is that I used to watch Ben walk by my house going to elementary school. So to see Ben as a man, it's just, I enjoy that. I
Wow.
like to do it, you know.
He didn't pick me up though.
Nah.
It was a blizzard, and he'd be like, no, we are.
We all walked to school from that point.
Well, and I would contribute the success I've had, which I'm still on a growing journey, but I think that a lot of people kind of overthink the business to some degree. I think that you want to do everything, but like realistically, I sold 13, 14 million one year with no CRM, 0. I had
Yeah,
a website, I had social media, I don't even know if I had really Facebook more than a couple hundred followers. But I just did the stuff, I did the only stuff that worked, and that was calling people, showing up, having open houses. And then just, I mean, I had the system of following back. I think following back is the biggest thing. Because everyone's looking for new business and not taking care of old business.
and that's where companies like Zillow and Redfin succeed, is they have great follow-up systems. And then we have to pay them referral fees to get our clients back because we forget to follow
Yeah.
up. So, you know, with that being said, as an agent, that's where I was strongest, was my follow-up.
Yep.
And so I would have 2 hours of lead gen and an hour of follow-up every single day. And I would even, my follow-up would encroach into my lead gen time, because I always felt like that's my lowest hanging fruit, like I'm gonna touch all of them first. And then I'll look for new business, because I don't wanna be Comcast.
Yeah.
Like Comcast always gives the best rates to new customers. And they treat you like $1 million when they're onboarding you or whatever, and then like you just get forgotten about and they just keep hiking your rate. I didn't want that feeling for my client.
Yeah, well, and also too, when you've already worked with people. Following back, I'm wishing them happy birthdays, things like that, but then, like, one of my new favorite, like, lead generation is, I'll just text all of my friends and be like, hey, I have clients looking in Mechanicsburg School District at this price point. If you know anybody that's thinking of selling, I promised I would reach out to them. And then I'll follow it back with like, hey, also, if you know anybody who is looking, I might get 4 or 5 responses if you want me to share it with them. So it's more like doing stuff with being deliberate about things.
Okay.
And having like a system in place for the lead or for the follow back.
I love that. What other items of value do you provide?
Well, so I'm reaching out into like more automated things, and they are paid, but like my new favorite one is HomeBot.
Okay,
HomeBot's like a home valuation, and you can load anybody into it. They don't have to be a past client or anything like that, but it looks super professional. And it's very, very value. And then we do birthdays, we do home anniversaries, just like random stuff too. I think you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, you're gonna go to a show and bring them all coffee. And then you're leveraging that one showing you had. They're gonna be like, well, my agent brought me coffee or something like
Right.
that. So I think just taking minimal things and turning them into bigger things.
I love that.
Cause it's hard to show up for your clients without trying to ask for stuff. But if you show up for your clients and provide value, then they give you a lot more referrals.
Does anybody know what HomeBot is? Okay, no, So if you just Google HomeBot, it's like $50 a month. And I don't like to go outside of command often, but we'll let the command please come after me. So command has a free neighborhood smart plan that does give pretty good information. It's free. Good is better than perfect, like use it if you're not gonna use anything else. HomeBot takes it to the next level. So $50, right? So you just have to figure out like what your budget is and how much you want to invest. But it'll send a home valuation to everybody in your database that has an address linked. It gives them much more detailed information. It just looks a little bit better, so it's more enticing to look at. It's more appealing to the eye. And then when they click it, they can request a CMA from you directly. But then you get all the analytics, who's opening the emails, who's looking, who's clicking. Then it rates them by like who's most likely to move in the next 6 months, who's likely to need a refinance. So you can hook up your lender to help pay for half of it. It's a very cool set it and forget it system. I've gotten several referrals from HomeBot just in the last year, and that's the only thing I do. Cause I gotta be honest, I don't have time to lead gen to my database. So HomeBot is what feeds me referrals.
Yeah, it has like an 82% open rate, really.
Yeah, it's the best seller value add email that I think you could.
Yeah, and I try to limit, like, I'm in a phase where my definition of success is a little different, and I'm like, I just want repeat business and I want like consistent business, so I'm paying a little bit more for a couple things like reach and HomeBot and things like that, but I'm narrowing down and focusing on free things, like
I love
social
that.
media, text messaging, video messaging, things like that, so.
Yeah, so you learned 2 new tools today. What else? What are other takeaways on the?
So the done is better than perfect was
Yeah.
huge for me. And then I also think you mentioned something about, our cadence with our Tuesday trainings and how like, your next big aha could be at next week's training.
Yeah.
Like your next learning opportunity could be like
Yeah, I think that's
what
huge.
launches you. Yeah.
Like, cause I run across a lot of agents that are like, well, I don't wanna work in the office, things like that, I'm like, you don't, but like, most of the time, like, we go to family reunion for our future self. Like, you learned it now, so that in 2 years, when you need it, it's there, so like, the training, like, I'll still go to a lot of the trainings, because I might get one thing that just motivates me to do the work tomorrow, so I think that's a huge thing you guys did. Small groups too, like, just having a reason, and then, tying into the culture.
I love that. I can't remember what training I was at, but they said something very similar where it was like, it could be literally one phrase that someone says at a training or a speaking event or church, like whatever the things are, that could literally change the course of your life, like one phrase.
At family reunion, there was a girl, Tally Hunt, who's like, she's like the female they talk about with KW.
Oh, yes.
And she said she had a social media strategy that was like insane to me, because I would have never thought that this would work, but she basically was like, I moved to a new area, I didn't know anybody, so I just started marketing to realtors, and then people assumed I knew what I was doing. Because I'm teaching the realtors what to do, and she's like, and I got so many referrals out of it, like, hey, do you know a good agent in this? And she would just refer people out, I was like, oh my god.
And it's so simple.
Yeah, or like I went to a family reunion, and after the session, I went up to the guy and I was like, hey, do you mind if I kick around my referral script with you? He's like, no, go ahead. And he said something to me, he was like, that changed my whole referral script. He was like, instead of asking, do you know anybody? Be like, who do you know that needs a win? Like, who do you know that needs an off-market property? Or who do you know that's struggling with finding a home right now? Because when you're giving, then it's way different than asking for something.
Right.
Because I would always struggle with like, I don't want to call them and ask for a referral. But if I'm giving something like, hey, we have like 10 off-market properties that we found through some different avenues. Who do you know that needs to find like an off-market property? Then that was much easier to, but I got it from that one, it wasn't even a session, it was like a conversation with somebody afterwards, so.
Yeah, in the hallway.
But you don't need to reinvent the wheel, it's just doing stuff better.
Love that. We got some good takeaways today for sure. Oh, and a book turkey. Did everybody
Oh,
catch
buy
that?
back.
Yeah, buy back your
I
time.
thought I was on my second time reading.
Brittany won't forget the book.
I will.
Already bought it.
Yeah, the
It's on
one
my-
thing
on my
saying
list.
that,
It is so good.
like saying that one, getting one thing from like training or whatever. I feel like at different points in your career hits different, so like,
Yeah.
you might have heard it 100 times, but like. That's a big thing, like hearing it from somebody else, or they might just say it a little bit different. So
Or
it's
they
like,
say it in the moment you're ready to receive it.
right,
You know, like
Yeah.
when you go to family reunion or bold or whatever class, like. If you're open-minded in that moment, it'll finally hit you, you're like, oh my gosh. This is what I need to do.
Yeah, sometimes it has nothing to do with the actual thing you're doing, but in 2 years, it'll hit you like, oh, I remember that person talking about that, or like, I mean, even just being, if you're a new agent, like being in the environment of everyone on the phone and like. I love our office because it's all kind of open. You can kind of hear anything unless you don't want to, but you can absorb so much.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So how do we get more people in the office?
I mean, I think that small groups are definitely huge. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Um,
more smaller groups that focus on niche things.
And then maybe just saying, hey, you can stay before and after. You don't have to come for class and then leave, like you can hang out. We haven't announced it yet, but if you go to the room that's
Yeah,
like.
we were just in there.
Oh,
like,
by
oh,
the
this is-
podcast room, we're making that into like a plug and play
You're so nosy.
space, so people can rent just desks. So that way you know every time that you always have, like, this is my reserved seat, you can decorate it a little bit. A lot of cubbies if you wanna store things.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, when I was looking for brokerages, I wanted somewhere where I came from a very private office, very private brokerage. Where you didn't even know who was in the office, so I love the idea of something like that, cause I think people, I mean,
That's what
It's
that's what we're
energy,
hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it's energy.
Yeah.
And then you like to see your friends sometimes.
Yeah,
I like sitting up in a cafe, because then I talk to a lot of random people. I don't get very much work done, but I have a lot of really good conversations.
good energy.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, and now we have a puzzle. And now we have a puzzle to keep everybody
Yeah,
Adrian's like, do the.
and entertained.
for sure.
or if you need a break, that's a great,
Break, a
like,
brain break.
mindless break, yeah. Well, awesome, well, thank you so much. for
Yeah.
today. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Sorry about the scare, about the chorus concert. I assume because our kids are in school together, like.
I'll be honest,
Chris.
they come home with, don't talk about school, please.
Figured I recorded it, then I was like, they usually record it,
Yeah.
on YouTube, you can just get it chopped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it to Ben. My Ben.
Yeah, okay, every time I say Ben, it's like, which one, I'm like, why don't you know? Get it in my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I really talk about the Bens that much?
The Bens.
That's why I think I'm a little jealous, like, okay.
No, and he just, yeah, I just talk about real estate, so. But, no, I love your outfit today.
Yeah.
How's your Target?
Target,